guys, it's Jean here, and today I wanted to go through my September and October wrap up. As I've talked about before on my channel, it was my wedding and honeymoon during this time. I went to Hawaii for that and had a really great time, and while I was overseas I did get to read a lot. So yes, I read 10 books this month, and I'm going to be going through them from the books that I love the most to the books that I like the least. So the first book is The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I absolutely love this author and read absolutely everything that she writes. I knew it was going to be a short story anthology, but there's illustrations in here as well, and they're absolutely gorgeous. As the story evolves, more and more gets added to the illustrations, and they end up completing a picture like this. Although there are a few spoilers in here. What I really loved about The Language of Thorns is that it takes fairy tales that we know and love. Ones like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and then it adds a twist to it. Things like making sure that love isn't the end goal for most of these women. Making sure that their needs and their wants are represented and not just disregarded to be saved by a prince. And also making sure that friendship and dangers in your own house, in your own town, people who don't appear to be dangerous actually are. There's just so many great themes in here that are important to know, especially in this day and age. And I just love Leigh Bardugo's imagination and then giving them a Grisha twist. So there's Russian mythology in here mixed in with the fairy tales. And I absolutely love The Language of Thorns. So I gave it 5 stars. And what's really cool is that as you're reading, the images actually make the story evolve, and I thought that was awesome. This book I actually read in Hawaii, and I thought it was absolutely perfect for the setting. And this is Molokai by Brennert. I've had this on my TBR for a long time, but I thought because I was in Hawaii that it was the perfect atmospheric setting for this book. This is a historical fiction novel. It's not YA, but it does explore a girl who, from her childhood to her lifetime, so it goes through how she's exiled to an island called Molokai because she has leprosy, but it also shows the community that she builds through that and how misunderstood the disease was in those days. And there's a lot of Hawaiian mythology, there's a lot of customs, and it really brings about the whole feel of ohana, which is family. I really enjoyed Molokai, and I ended up giving it 5 stars as well. The next book I absolutely loved. I'm a huge Amie Kaufman and Megan Spooner fan, and that is Unearthed. It's really funny because I actually read this when I was hiking in the volcanoes there, and it felt like it was a really fitting setting in this one. The 2 main characters are actually hiking in a tomb and trying to find out its hidden secrets, and then there's aliens. I really love the space setting in this one, and it's described as a cross between Indiana Jones and Lara Croft. I didn't really feel like it was that way because of the space setting, and there were raiders and scavengers and everything. But I did like how they had to solve the secrets of this tomb and the puzzles that they went through. I love the combination of the 2 main characters and how much sass and chemistry they had. I love Jules and his scholarly edge and wanting to preserve the alien knowledge. And I really loved Amelia. She's a misunderstood scavenger, and she's really trying to get loot so she can sell it off so she can save her sister. If you guys haven't read these Broken Stars, I really recommend that series because it's got so much sass and it's got an awesome ship as well. So I can't wait for everyone to read Unearthed, and this one was 4.5 stars. Guys, I absolutely loved Tower of Dawn, but isn't it funny because when you read a book that you absolutely loved, you can't really review it, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment, because every time I think about reviewing this book, I keep on coming up with things that pop up and I'm like, did I like that or did I not? I read Tower of Dawn within 24 hours because I was stuck in an airport then, and I loved it. I know a lot of people were really skeptical about Chaol's story, but in here you really get to see the development of his character as him and Nezrin go and visit the Southern Land to look for healing. And I loved how they didn't take the easy way out either. There's some great additions here and some great characters. Yareen, a healer who's absolutely badass, and she has a lot of defiance in here, and she's definitely one of my new favorite characters. There's also Satak, and he rides this giant like dragon bird thing, which is what I picture. The world building in here was absolutely fantastic because it felt very different to where they've come from. And then also check out the beautiful artwork on this as well. There was one thing that actually annoyed me about Tower of Dawn, is that everyone seems to pair off as usual, and also the ships, it's just like Sarah J Maas does this thing where in every single book she decides to change the ship of the characters, and that actually really grinds on my nerves as well. But overall, I loved following Kale and Nezrin, Yareen and Satak as they banded together and yeah, looked for healing for Kale and also tried to find out their place in the war. So I gave Tower of Dawn 4.5 stars. The next one is a Love Oz YA book that I read for Oz YA, which I do on ABC Radio every month, featuring 2 Love Oz YA books, and that is Take 3 Girls by Cath, Crowley, Simmone, Howell and Fiona Wood. And these 3 authors actually visited us recently in Brisbane, but I wasn't able to attend because I was overseas. I actually really loved it, and I've read Words in Deep Blue before by Cath Crowley, and it was also fantastic, so I had high hopes for this one. It follows 3 girls who form an unlikely friendship. There's Adie, who is the popular girl, who's also the queen bee, but she has a lot of family issues. And then there's Kate, who's really into music, but she also has a hidden talent in hacking and computer skills. And then there's also Clem, and she's the most naive one. She's a swimming superstar, but she's also got hang-ups on her body after gaining weight, and she's absolutely boy crazy. So I loved how each and every character just felt so real and so well-rounded. You could really make sense of what they were going through, and the problems that they had were also really relatable. And I just loved how it touched upon themes of online bullying and you know, misogyny, of feminism, and of how that occurs in this day and age through the internet. I also loved how it talked about friendship and what it really means to be supporting each other instead of competing with one another. So that is Take 3 Girls, and I'll have a review up on my blog at happyindulgencebooks.com shortly. So I'll link it down below once that's up. And I gave Take 3 Girls 4 stars. Next book is Warcross by Marie Lu. I do have a review up on the blog already, so I'll link that down below. But Warcross is one of my most hyped books of the year, and I don't know, I was a bit disappointed with it because it was just so predictable, and there were some things that were done really well, but then a lot of things sort of prevented me from truly getting immersed in the world. And one thing, it features my pet hate, which is insta-love, and I have no idea why it was featured so heavily here, because you've got Amika Chen. She's a bounty hunter, and she chases down people who are trying to rot the Warcross system. Warcross is a virtual reality game that has really taken off in the world. And then you've got Hideo Tanaka, who is the game's creator, but all of a sudden when they meet, he takes a huge liking to her, and I was actually really uncomfortable with their relationship because he's her boss, he's older than her, he's more rich, he's influential, he pays off her debts, and it really felt like she was really indebted to him and couldn't say no to his advances. I also didn't really know why the game was so popular because, I mean, it's apparently a worldwide sensation, and I couldn't really picture how it was really played. Basically, you're meant to pick up these artifacts, you have different classes, and I didn't know why some of them existed. I love the Japanese setting, especially in the futuristic world, with how technology takes over everything and is run by corporations. But yeah, it's like I wanted more out of the gaming explanations, I wanted more out of the other characters and more of the setting as well. There is a twist that did throw me off at the end, and I did enjoy that, and I hope there's more of everything explored in the next book. I ended up giving Warcross 3.5 stars. It was something that I enjoyed but didn't love. I actually read this at the start of the month, and that's The Ones That Disappeared by Zana Froylan. And this one is actually quite a dark love Oz YA book. It's a very confronting book about those children that go missing and get taken into slavery. And they actually get separated at the start. One of them escapes and another of them gets held back in the hospital. It was definitely a really beautiful read, but yes, it's definitely one that you have to prepare yourself for. It really makes you think as well about how prevalent slavery is in today's day and age. I gave The Ones That Disappeared 3.5 stars. Next one is another Leigh Bardugo book, and that is Wonder Woman Warbringer. This book was actually quite disappointing for me because I love Wonder Woman, I love Leigh Bardugo, but together it kind of felt like it was missing that spark, and I can't really explain it that well because I've watched Wonder Woman the movie. I know of Wonder Woman's qualities as a character. You know, she's brave, she's kind, she's selfless, and she's heroic, and there wasn't anything too much that was added here in terms of her character development, and that's probably fine because it's DC's character. The part of this that I did like was the friendship. I love the new character called Alia. She's a Warbringer, and she's also a descendant of Helen of Troy. So I loved what Alia brought to the story. She's biracial, from a Greek African American background, so she's completely aware of the microaggressions that people like her experience every day. I loved how she's quite humble because her parents are super rich as scientists, also a little awkward and geeky, but she's defiant and she tells it like it is. And it's also quite funny because she has a lovely nature, laughing off Diana and how she doesn't understand the world that they live in and how she's always questioning things that don't happen, like why do males always hit on women in public when it's clearly unwelcome? So things like that were really funny. I loved the side characters as well. So there's Nim, her gay and fat and awesome best friend who's really funny. There's Theo, who's a bit shy and awkward. And then there's also the brother Jason. This is what didn't really fly with me. For such a feminist novel that focuses on female empowerment, there's a romance here between Diana and Jason, and he's the most arrogant A-type prick that you could ever meet, and I just did not see the appeal between the two of them. So I did enjoy Warbringer, but I definitely felt like there was something missing. I ended up giving this 3 stars. The next book is a book that was released a few years ago, and that is She Is Not Invisible by Marcus Sedgwick. This was such an interesting book, and I haven't read anything by Marcus Sedgwick, but I know that he crosses genres really well. This book definitely met that expectation. It's a bit of a contemporary, there's a spec-fic twist in here, and there's also a bit of a thriller as well. The character in here, she's blind and she navigates the world through her younger brother who is 7 years old. They run away to New York to try and find her missing father, but when they're there they end up encountering a lot of coincidences. Coincidences is what the book is about. Her father's an author, he's exploring coincidences and trying to make a legit story out of it. I think the thing that really put me off enjoying this book was that you had to really suspend your disbelief at times. For example, her brother has this power of making electricity die whenever he touches anything, and that's actually incredibly convenient. I don't know how she could have traveled from London to New York with no passport for her brother. And I don't know why her mum wouldn't have noticed the two of them missing until a few days later. So despite that, I did find it an enjoyable read, but definitely not one that I would rush to recommend. I ended up giving this 3 stars. The last book that I read this month is In the Dark Spaces by Callie Black. This is a Love Oz YA read that was also the winner of the Ampersand Prize. This book I'm also covering on Oz YA on ABC Radio next week. So In the Dark Spaces was such a strange read, but it was also really philosophical as well. It's about a 14-year-old girl who has lost her auntie and her family, and her only solace is the baby that she's looking after, who is also her younger cousin. But all of a sudden her ship gets invaded and she has to assimilate in order to survive. These aliens that invade the ship are like massive vultures or crows, but in human form. So they're actually super freaky, and the way they communicate is by whistling to each other, and that's their language. And Tamara here learns their language and learns how to get on their good side. She actually finds a community within them, and she's never belonged to a world where she's felt more cared for. But her main goal through all of this is to reunite with that baby. This book actually almost lost me because it gets super weird when Tamara's like whistling to the crows and they're whistling back and making fun of her. I thought that was quite strange. And that actually makes up half the book. Towards the end, it does speed up though, and then it explores quite a bit about, you know, alien colonization, about working together, about what it means to be a family. So there's a lot of philosophy and morality in here as well. I did enjoy In the Dark Spaces. I love the space setting, and the suspense in here was fantastic. I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was Without Merit by Colleen Hoover, and I actually forgot to feature it in my original wrap-up, so I'm just sort of catching up now, and that's because it was a review copy on my Kindle. I found it super entertaining and it was a really quick read. It's definitely not something I would have expected from the author, as she writes a lot of romance with a lot of important issues, but this one is about a girl and a quirky family and all the family drama that they had to go through. There were a lot of scenes here that were super cringe-worthy, like she pretends to be her twin sister, puts on her clothes and her makeup, and then goes and kisses her twin sister's boyfriend, and things like that were just so cringe-worthy. The book also opens with an insta-lovey scene where she spots this guy in the store and he's absolutely enthralled with her, and then later on there's a big kiss, and then when he sort of explains it later on, it was just like, it wasn't believable at all. I think that overriding message of the book was really important, that you can suffer from depression without knowing about it, and everyone suffers in a different way. I ended up giving Without Merit 3 stars. So these are all the books that I read during September and October. That's 10 books in total. I hope you guys enjoyed this wrap up, and I'll see you guys soon. I have a lot of new videos planned for BookTube. I hope I can post once a week. I'll see how I go. But yes, if you guys enjoyed my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more. Thanks guys, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.